So in your world, in your experience with agricultural extension, your vast experience, what methods have you found have worked really well? I mean, you come at this from a very kind of deep science perspective, where you have that ability. How have you been able to extend some of the more kind of complex things to an audience that may not know as much, may not have their PhDs?
Well, the only thing a PhD does is it offers you the ability to network probably more fully and to, I guess, talk to people who are in research from a perspective of practicality as well. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
that was an opportunity, I think, for me. Uh, so one of the key things that I think that extension can do is offer support for on farm trials, like early on, so that and it means commitment. It's sometimes awkward. Will they always be successful? No, but in the long term, it's worth. It's a sort of short term pain, long term gain when you do on farm trials, and and so again, farming has more questions than answers, more variables. So it helps to narrow, being part of access to extension opportunities. It helps to verbalize or helps make a plan so that, and once you have a plan, well then it's easy to follow through. It's confusion if you don't have the opportunity to talk to people who have dabbled, have committed, and I'll refer to one fellow in particular that unfortunately he's passed away, was Guy Lafond. I had a very close relationship with Guy at the Indian Head Research Station, but he was a phenomenal person, had phenomenal passion, and Saskatchewan, well, agriculture in Western Canada was a debt of gratitude.
Wow, it's very interesting.
You've mentioned the network a couple of times. You're in networking. Who is in your network? Who are essential people to have in a network?
So on our farm, and we kind of show it on our website, is that we partner with collaborative organizations, people. We work with the machinery equipment suppliers. One of our most important and critical challenges on the farm is residue management. So we work with Redikoff, and we test their and pilot some of their equipment, their choppers.
Yeah.
And my son worked for initially Flexicoil, then CNH and so he's got connections there. We test, in fact, we test some of their equipment. They do trials, so seeding equipment. We've been to some think tank activities, and more the engineers more than myself these days, where the individual companies are looking to what's going to happen in the future, what do they need to, what types of equipment, and MacDon was one we worked with for 30 years. The swathers. We work with marketing people, and we work with Cargill and their Market Sense program. We were one of the initial pilot people. I'm trying to think how long it was, but again, it was probably 25 years ago. So again, the management end. So all the aspects that it takes, and we could go into the financing, but that might. I don't want to get into too many details of that, because there are some financial institutions that really do not understand farming.
Just on the marketing, because I'd hoped to come back to this, so the timing is perfect. So you said you market some crops 2 to 3 years in advance. How does that work?
Well, you can actually on the stock exchange, you can actually market wheat and canola 2 years in advance. It'll be a very thin trade, and it'll be limited as to what you can do. But you can, but you can actually market, and we have sometimes got as much as 10 to 20% of our grain marketed, even before a year, complete year. But we start now for 2027, so we're down in there. The other collaborative relationships we have is with things with ingredients. I want to suggest we grow ingredients and not commodities. So we grow flax. So ultimately, it's a relationship program that we deal with because it's high omega-3 yellow flax, and there's a limited market. But the schooler requires commitment, not just 1 year but several years, so that because they need to be in the marketing business for 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 years down the road, right? So we have, I won't say handshake agreements, but sort of commitments to each other where there's good follow through that we will grow for them, and we generally our premium is sufficient to be significant. And so some of those we will guarantee not just production, but there'll be a price tag to it, because in that production commitment there will be a fixed price.
That's great. So we're almost out of time, so I want to sneak a couple things in here. One of them is your love of hiking, and I think that's really interesting. And I think in your interview with Ashley ahead of this, you talked about how you really enjoy hiking, and that you treat these annual hiking trips as almost spring training, ahead of the growing season. So I want to talk about the hiking because I enjoy hiking as well. But I also really love the idea of the idea of having a trip like that, or a season like that, where you are prepping your mind and your body for a busy growing season. And I think that's a neat thing. I think it's a kind of a unique element to an annual kind of farmer's schedule, where you take that time, because I know winters can be busy, like for me and Jay, and maybe you too. It's lots of farm meetings and stuff like that. So there is that period of time when the conferences end, and there's a bit of a kind of a lull between that and when the growing season kicks off. And I love the idea of doing something like that. You get the fresh air, you're outside, you get to enjoy nature and your physical exercise. So yeah, talk a little bit about that. I think it's great.
So a rough rule of thumb is sort of mid-February till the end of like 3 weeks. My wife's birthday is on February 17th, and she says she wants to be hiking in the desert in shorts on February 17th. So we don't go to the beach. We have hiked the Grand Canyon 7 times and camped at the bottom. The first 4, we packed everything down and back up, with staying down there either 2 or 3 nights. The last couple of times we've sort of shared some of our load with the mules, because you can. So we're not taking because it's. And so in preparing, and I'm using the Grand Canyon hike as an example. So the elevation at the top of the Grand Canyon is 7,200 feet. At the Colorado River, it's 2,000 feet. We live at 2,000 feet, just 1,800 foot elevation. When you are having to exert yourself at 7,000 feet, climbing switchbacks, virtually vertically, slate switchbacks at 7,000 feet, you have to get conditioned before you can actually tackle that. So we actually go and hike in at about 4 to 5 to 6,000 foot elevation in Arches National Park, or our Canyonlands is our favorite. This year we hit the Capitol Reef. We have hiked it at Bryce or Zion. So those are national parks in the United States, and much as there seems to be some I won't say conflict, but some stress at the border. Once we get down there and we're hiking, no nationalities. I mean, it's just fun. But for me, I get in shape for spring because we will generally do, essentially 20,000 steps a day on average. So it'll vary anywhere from 10 to 40. But when we come back, having hiked at that elevation, and just before the busy season, I feel very invigorated. And plus, my wife and I have had an opportunity to get together because she teaches piano and she gardens like crazy. So this is essentially the main event for us to kind of do stuff together without a lot of noise in the background.
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And again, that's part of the 100-year plan. If I'm going to hit 100-year, I better.
All right.
That's right. Keep moving.
Yeah.
So, John, you've got a lot of philosophies to live by, which I kind of like, and one of them is, and maybe this planning, this hike, this preseason training, is an extension of this whole farm brand that you've created. You've actually got a slogan which I wrote down. So family, stewardship, community, innovation. Maybe that's not a slogan, but that's on your farm logo. You've got a website, you've got a video. And what is the motivation behind doing all of that?
Well, again, if we're talking about several generations and how people perceive us, there's a danger and an advantage of having a website. People want to be a little bit judgmental, and maybe you don't want to come across as bragging, but yet we want to be transparent and what we value, and it helps us keep on track too. That we when you're making decisions, if you use these vision statements, it keeps you on track to make as a group and generations, because we'll be into the fourth generation here soon, because our plan is this is a legacy, that it's not a 50-year-old farm, it's a 2,000-year-old farm or more. So it helps everybody, I hope, to realize what my wife's, Linda's and my priorities are, and if we can carry that on, we feel that's the best we can do to live forever. So we're a little bit selfish, but it keeps us on track as a group.
Right. So it's for you internal as much, maybe even more so than any sort of external reach that a website might offer. It's just to keep everyone on the farm grounded. This is our philosophy. This is our approach. So two kind of quick things kind of stemming from that. I keep thinking back to your Monday morning 3-hour management meeting, and I can just see people saying, I don't have time for that. But in some ways, maybe that 3 focused hours just sets up for better profitability and productivity for all the rest of the hours spent in the week. Would you agree, or what? Or having done it, do you think, well, maybe it isn't the best use of our time?
I think it's critical to, again, when you're dealing with so many variables, and so you can think, I would say either outside the box, or you'll get consumed and get a tunnel vision. You get to sort things out as a plan, as opposed to a reaction. You're proactive instead of reactive. And I think I believe in agriculture we can get blindsided so many ways. So it allows for, I have to say, for good mental health as part of that. I mean, I don't want to say that lightly or a cop out either, but I really think that it helps us, again, excuse the pun, be grounded in many ways. You have to, again, short-term pain, because sitting at those meetings, I'm thinking we could be out there doing something else. But I think we do better outside what we do when we're not there. And so I don't think it's a handicap. I think it's an advantage long term, and especially when you've got a group of people who have different talents, and you want to make sure all their talents and their efforts are appreciated.
So the last thing I have is just if you don't mind, Toban, just so what is your message to your grandkids, and then that next 2 generations removed, when it comes to agriculture and your philosophy, your motivation? What message do you like to get across to them?
I guess the first is have fun. If you're not having fun, and have passion. So right now, I would say for our operation, but everyone, look for the opportunities in the challenges. There are always opportunities. There's books being written, that there's actually more opportunity when there are challenges than when they're not. It's much like marketing grain. When that's volatile, even though it may hit a low that you don't like, there's opportunity to take advantage of that.